Slenderman Tutorials here, and today I'm going to continue our Unity 5 game design tutorial series with fixing our character movement method to tailor it to our game, as well as creating a jump method so that our character can jump while we are playing. And so first we're going to change the movement method because we've been having a problem where we're moving on the global axes. I'll show you the issue right here, where when we press D, WASD, it will move based off the global axes, and if you rotate, I'm now pressing the W and S keys and it's going side to side. So we need to make it so the player is moving based off the camera rotation. And so we're going to do that using translate, and we're going to get into what that means. And also we're going to add jumping capabilities, looking more into the input methods so that we can do that. So let's get into coding. So we have our player control script. Let's open that up. The thing that's going on here is that we're moving the position based off of vector 3, but it's not actually moving based off the local rotation of the object. Basically, we're just going to delete these two lines of code. First, we need to make sure that we're getting the transform of the object we want to move, which is our local player. So we're just going to do transform, and then we're going to translate. So translate moves it with regards to all of the local axes. And then we're going to move it on the horizontal axis, and we're going to multiply that by time.delta time. That's for our x. Now we need to do it for the y and z axes. We don't want it to move at all, so we're just going to put 0f there. That just means it's not going to move at all, 0 on the y axis. And then we're going to do move vertical for the z axis. So it's going to be move vertical times time dot delta time. We need to multiply by speed. Okay, now let's try it out. We're moving and it's fast. Good, perfect. That's exactly what we want. Let's get into jumping. I'm going to create a new method, void jump. We need to add in a few variables. First, we need to know whether or not we're on the ground. We don't want to be jumping in the air. And the first one I'm going to create is a boolean. So I'm going to make that a public boolean, and it's going to be grounded. It's going to check if we're on the ground, and we're going to set it equal to true when the game starts. So first we need to check if it is grounded and if the character isn't moving. What we're going to do is we're going to create an if statement. An if statement just checks if a condition is equal to true. So we're going to say if grounded double equals false. And so what this does is, instead of assigning a variable, it will check, right? Double equals checks if something is equal to false, or a value. Yes, value. So we're going to check if grounded is equal to false, and we want to see if the character is moving at all on the y-axis, right? So we're going to do double and sign for and then we're going to check if the character rigid body, right? The character rigid body has any velocity, right? If it's moving at all on the y-axis. And so we're going to check if that's equal to 0. So if these two things are true, then grounded is going to be equal to true. We're going to set grounded equal to true. And this is basically going to make sure that we are able to jump, right? And then we're going to check if we have the jump button down. So that's just the space bar. So we're going to check if we have an input, and if that input is a button, so we're going to do get button down, and then we're going to check if that button is jump. And so that just means it's the space. And you can always look this up in the Unity documentation for any key codes or things like that if you're not quite sure. So then we're going to also check if grounded is equal to true. So we're going to set grounded double equals true. So we've just looked at if the input is the spacebar and if this grounded Boolean variable is equal to true. And so if that is true, then our character, right, we're going to want to force it up. We're going to want to push it up. So there's this cool thing called add force that we can use to add force to the object on a vector direction. So you could use this maybe for you could use the add force for maybe a space game where there is no gravity, and you add a force to the object. It will just keep going because that force is continuously applied to it. That's one example. However, I wouldn't recommend using add force for normal characters for moving them in the game, except for the jump function, because we add the force upwards and then we have a rigid body attached, so it will start to go down and it will touch the ground inevitably because the force is not strong enough to keep it up forever. So we're adding a force, and this force is going to push us up on the y-axis. So the way we can reference that is we're going to check if our transform, we're going to reference our transform object, and we're going to reference the up axis. So it's just referencing the y-axis. And then we're going to check if that's equal to a variable for which we can apply basically a value we can control for the jump power. So I'm just going to create a new variable. It's going to be a public float. And I'm just going to call this jump power. And then for our add force, we're going to multiply our transform.up by jump power. And then we're going to close that off. And then we're going to set grounded equal to false. And we're setting grounded equal to false because we don't want to be able to jump in the air. That would be very unrealistic. If grounded is equal to true, right, it's never set to false, and therefore you won't be able to, you'll just be able to jump indefinitely. So we want to set grounded equal to force if the condition is met. If the button is pressed, and then it'll add force and set grounded equal to false, and that will fix all of the problems. So after we do this, we need to remember to call it in the update function, or else it won't run every time the frame is called, and multiply jump power by 100. There we go. And that way, whatever jump power is automatically multiplied by 100. So now if I have a jump power of 4, I can jump up and down, right? We fixed a lot of the problems that were in the original script, and now we have jumping capabilities, and hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about Unity 5 and C# and everything. Comment down below if you'd like me to cover more topics in the future. And also, I have a general idea about the tutorial series, but I would love to hear suggestions from my audience. Also, click the like button if you want to see me continue doing these videos. As always, subscribe because the support really encourages me to make more. Next video, I'm going to go into sprinting and actually animating characters and importing them from Blender. Kind of parallel from this tutorial series, I'm also going to be doing a Blender development series, kind of going into character modeling, 3D modeling, so forth for game objects and things like that. So that's not going to be as rigid as this one. This one's going to go on a linear path, but the Blender series is going to go more into modeling objects for maybe your game if you have like terrain or any rocks or things like that. General 3D objects for your game. That's going to be more for that and how to use Blender. But make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. See you next video.